When I knew my wife was getting ready to leave, there was a shift in how I was interacting. There was a shift in how I was reacting to her. It's no small idea that like my wife multiple times like wanted to leave. Like she wanted to get away from me because of how I was showing up mentally and emotionally so abusive. Walking on eggshells, not understanding like when I came home, like how I was going to respond, how I was going to treat her not being able to express her feelings, her emotions, or even talk about her day because my day was more important than her day. So everything had to override her. Everything had to override what she had to say. Her opinions didn't matter, her beliefs didn't matter, nothing mattered, just me. That was the only thing that mattered. And oftentimes inside of a relationship, like you can feel an energetic shift. For me, I knew there's a piece where she was starting to check out more and more and more. There's a piece where she was talking about leaving more and more and more. Like I knew something was going to shift, something was going to change. And so there's a piece of me that out of self-preservation was like, I need to do something different. Because if I don't, she's going to leave me. If I don't, then I'm going to look like the bad guy. So I need to do something different. So we looked into therapy. And I'm like, well, I don't really believe in it. I think this person's a quack, but I'll go. Why? Because that's what it seems to be my wife wants. And so I kind of went out to therapy initially, part of it as an obligation. I was like, well, we'll just do this. So I went to EMDR therapy, not knowing what the heck I was walking into. EMDR therapy typically is going off of this eye movement, going back and forth, desensitizing to be able to help you actually process different emotions or trauma in the past. I didn't know that I had any emotions or trauma in the past. So I was like, this is kind of pointless. What's the point of this? Sat through the first session. That didn't really like work, didn't really do anything. We had to switch to like holding these like little pads and kind of like vibrating back and forth, buzzing back and forth in one sense to try to be able to do the job because the eye movement stuff wasn't working. Then we went into a couple more sessions and I was like, okay, like not much is happening. Then we started actually pulling up something and I was like, this is weird. Never had this happen before. And it pulled up different pieces in my past of like a previous girlfriend in my life, like one of the first ones. And different emotions and feelings that were attached to that I didn't realize I had emotions and feelings about. Really, I didn't realize I had emotions and feelings at all. And so inside of this process, it was like trying to be able to work through stuff that I didn't even understand was there and that I didn't even know how to be able to work through it. But it was like deep stuff. Stuff that went back all the way to my childhood that I didn't realize had affected me the way that it had. And so inside all of this, there's a period of me working through these different pieces. And I'm also thinking in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, see, now I'm doing what I need to do. So my wife should stay. And so there's these different things that would happen where I'd start to modify how I was showing up. Like I went to therapy. I started to act better. I started to talk better. There were these small tweaks that seemed to keep her. And so in my mind, I'm seeing and I'm kind of checking off boxes of, okay, if I do this, she likes this. If I do this, she likes this. Notice how I phrased it. I said, I'm checking off boxes. It wasn't this like, oh my gosh, like I love her so much. I want to do this for her. It's like, what do I have to do to keep her in the relationship so I keep my image? So I look, okay, check that box, check that box, check that box. Don't need to check that one yet because she's still here. Oh, now she's leaving. Check that box. Like there's this piece where I had to keep modifying different pieces of myself to look and appear a certain way so that she would stay. The narcissist in your life at the end of the relationship will change everything about himself to keep you under his control. Let me say it again. The narcissist in your life at the end of the relationship will change everything about himself to keep you in his control. Are you falling for it? Are you believing the lie that he's projecting into your life right here, right now? Are you in that next honeymoon high for the next 2 weeks until it disintegrates and it falls back to the same abusive behavior? Because we see this happen over and over and over again. Why? The narcissist changes at the end of the relationship for you. That's the problem. You see, change for another person will only last for as long as that person fits the ideal image of what the narcissist wants. So like if I change for you until you actually break that piece of like, oh, I'm changing for you and this is great. And then all of a sudden you hold me accountable, you do something that's attacking to me because I'm in victim mode. Then I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not great anymore. Why in the world am I changing for you? Forget you. And then I stop. This is why change for another person never works. This is why when people come to Raw Motivations and they're like, I want to change him, never works. I want to change for someone else, never works. Sometimes even I want to change for my kids, oftentimes never works. Because of the fact that change has to come for you and you only. You saying, this is who I want to be. This is who I have to be. I have to change who I am. If I don't, I'll always be stuck. Now, narcissists will use this piece of change as a form of manipulation to be able to keep you. Same thing with an apology. An apology without change behavior is manipulation. Again, not changing, still keeping you. But then they get to a place where you start to think about leaving. You start to build up your strength of like, no, I actually need to leave because I'm worth more than this. How he's treating me, how he's valuing me, it's not value, it's not love, it's not care. I actually need to leave. And so as a result, you get ready to leave. But as you do this, all of a sudden he starts to change. He shows up different. He buys you flowers, takes you on a vacation, promises you something. Like all of a sudden things start to shift and you're like, wait a second, this actually isn't that bad. We see this at the end of the relationship. We see this after the end of the relationship when he's trying to hoover you back. All of a sudden you've been thinking about this for a while and you're like, it might not be that bad. And he shows up on your front door with flowers. And you're like, whoa, he actually cares about me now. Like this is something he's never done. And you start to feel this like warmth and this like kindness in your heart. And you're like, he actually cares. Because even though he's blocked, even though he can't contact me any other way, he actually went to all the effort to pick up flowers and come to my house. You need to understand that he did that because there was no other option to be able to manipulate you. Like he got the flowers because he knew that you liked the flowers and he hasn't gotten you flowers for the past 2 years, even though he knew. You didn't call him up recently and say, hey, can you buy me flowers? He already knew you wanted the flowers. He just decided not to give them to you because he didn't really care about you. And so when he shows up at your door, you need to understand this isn't this amazing act of love and self-sacrifice. It's him, quote unquote, changing at the end of the relationship to be able to keep you in the relationship, to make sure that you actually realize how loved, how valued, how respected you are because he's showing up with a couple of flowers begging you to stay. Narcissists change at the end of the relationship to keep you under their control. He will modify what he does, how he acts, how he responds, the direction he goes, what he says, what he does. You will see sometimes a dramatic shift in the toxic person at the end of the relationship. But here's what I need you to understand, and here's what I need you to know. Is all the pieces that the narcissist changes at the end of the relationship were not because he had this giant epiphany at the end of the relationship. Instead, he's changing things that you've asked him to change for sometimes years or even decades. And you need to understand, if you don't get anything from this video, you need to understand this one piece right now. The fact that he's changing all these things that you've always wanted shows and validates that he's always known. And he's been unwilling to give you the things you asked for. He's been unwilling to show up in the way that you requested, in the way that you said, this is what makes me feel loved. This is what makes me feel accepted. And he's like, I know, let me not give you that. Because if I don't give you that, you'll keep trying for more. The reason why he's shifting at the end of the relationship isn't because he all of a sudden loves you. Isn't because all of a sudden he cares about you. It's because he no longer has a way to manipulate you. Because he's kept you in a desert of his affection for such a long period of time. Then he's like, let me give you a drop of water and see if you like it now. And you're like, oh my gosh, he's amazing. No, he's manipulating. And he's trying to keep you in the relationship. And he's trying to make you feel like you feel wonderful when in reality, he's still giving you crumbs. How many of you are falling for this right now? It's been hell for a long period of time. And all of a sudden you're like, but it's great now. Is it really? Or do you just have the rose-colored glasses back on again? Is it actually different now? Or is it just a different perspective of the same shit that you've been dealing with for a long period of time? Is it actually him healing, growing, changing? Because he's still not in therapy. He's still not really adjusting what he's saying. You're just getting distracted by the love bombing and the pieces of niceness that he throws in that's still slowly degrading and putting you down and building your confidence back on him versus back on you. Narcissists change at the end of the relationship to manipulate and to control, to bring you back under a place of you being dependent on him. The question is, are you going to let him do it, or are you going to wake up and get free? If I can help you break free today, go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough to understand how I work with people to help break them free from toxic narcissistic abuse today.